All right, everyone, it's time to talk about what to expect if Biden does manage to win the presidential election. Now, of course, when I say that there's an 85-90% chance that Trump wins, that also means there's a 10 to 15% chance of Biden winning. Now, the reason that's so low, despite him being 5 points ahead roughly in national battleground polling at the moment, and it switches week to week, keep in mind the aggregate is never fully stable, is specifically because of the debates. The fact that he's waging a war of attrition against himself by whining and dining the left, I think independents whose vote, they haven't quite made up their mind, in the end are going to tilt for Trump. I think Biden has lost steam with Hispanic voters especially. There's some of his screwiness. And then you've got riots ongoing. You've got crime that's linked to far leftism. It's beginning to be dead weight around the Democrats' neck. I don't expect the Republicans to win the House, but I expect them to keep the Senate, and I expect Trump to win re-election. That's my rough prediction. Now, this could change, and until the third debate is over, we won't have anything near a final prediction. And you can always get an October surprise correct as well. You could get middle of October, Trump has a stroke or something. That would definitely tilt the election in Biden's favor. But here's what to expect if Biden does win. Number one, economic stagnation. The era of good feels as far as larger businesses that do a lot of the investing and building of actual jobs in the country, much of that will go away. Again, not least-wise because of the fact that the China trade deal will never happen. You'll never have finality on that. You'll never have any significant tax relief for anyone during a Biden presidency. And so naturally people will tend to try to hoard their money. He'll go after the Trump tax cuts as well. He'll try to destroy them before they naturally expire. He will raise taxes. And when he says he won't raise taxes on anyone making less than $400K a year, he is lying flat out. It's a Herbert Walker moment. He will, because if you look at the proposals that he's made, unless he is a do-nothing president who just sits there and twiddles his thumbs, if he actually attempts any of the things he says he wants to attempt, he will not be able to get enough money for that by simply taxing the rich. He won't be able, the math doesn't add up. He could confiscate every penny of wealth from every billionaire in the U.S. and still come up short. That's the problem. Also, you can expect an absent presidency. You will see very little of Joe Biden. Little snippets of him. That's what you'll get. You're not even going to get many speeches. The normal speeches that you get in a presidency, like Trump holds de facto rallies at the White House all the time, you're not going to have that. He will be largely an absentee. You're going to hear much more from his staff and from Kamala Harris. It'll be ominous. It'll be a little bit of a disturbing time, I think, for a lot of people who are more apolitical, because they're going to go from one of the most bombastic presidents, which is Trump. He bounces around and says weird shit. He's very entertaining as well, because he's an entertainer mainly. You're going to go from that to a president who will be very boring when he does speak and speaks as little as possible. Because Joe Biden is an old sick man with dementia. That's really just how things work. A cabal of staffers will be running the show behind the scenes by and large. When Biden does make a decision, it'll basically be at their advice and behest and consent, and he will not be technically an acting president at all. This has happened before in the United States. Also, we've had presidents pretend to be in such situations. You remember George W.? George W. was really, really happy when people said, well, he's just an oaf, Cheney's really running things. No. George W. is a very, very smart man. Extremely shrewd. He's so shrewd, he got you to chase ghosts, and he got you to think that the president was just a buffoon and that other people were the evil ones. Now, Bush was the one calling the shots. Trust me. He was almost an imperial president. He's a very, very evil man. You'll have attacks on gun rights. You'll definitely have an attempt to nullify the Second Amendment. It'll be pointless. I don't think that it'll work long term. One risk is, of course, over the subsequent 4 years, there are a couple of pro-gun justices that are in their 70s. They could keel over. If that happens, Biden gets a SCOTUS pick, the court tilts far left on guns. You could have a nullification of federal court cases, actually, that have been pro-gun. This is the biggest reason, I think, for me, other than economics, to vote for Trump again, really boils down to the composition of SCOTUS instead of the executive branch itself. Yeah, I want a China trade deal. I want the wall to continue being built, and I definitely want tax relief 2.0. But as long as we can keep the economy generally going in the right direction, which Trump would do, and I don't have faith in Biden to govern an economy. I don't even have faith in Biden to balance his own checkbook. SCOTUS would be the big thing. Ginsburg will probably die in the next 4 years. I would rather her be replaced by someone who is, I don't care if they're on the left, I just want them to be less anti-gun. I want a court that will respect the Second Amendment. It is one of the fundamental, most important underpinnings of U.S. society, the ability of people to keep and bear arms and defend themselves. I think it's important. I think it's worth fighting for. The accelerationism bullshit is a bunch of yang gang crap, and I reject it completely. You'll see attacks on free speech and expression. Not from Biden himself. Keep in mind, it won't come from the White House. It'll come from private firms that just happen to all be partnered with the U.S. government led by Joe Biden, at least in name. You'll see that. What to not expect. Do not expect a Great Depression, Civil War, martial law, and all of this hyperbolic goddamn bullshit that every losing team trots out both before and after every U.S. election. The Democrats swore up and down Trump was going to tank the U.S. economy. We'd be in a... Krugman, we'll be in a U.S. depression within 6 months if Trump is elected. Instead, everything was soaring on ahead. More job growth, more wage growth, better stock reports, an overhaul of the NAFTA deal. Everything went well until coronavirus response, led by the far left, partially to try to debilitate the economy in the run-up to the election. They're failing, but they're trying. That's what to expect. You'll see economic stagnation, but don't expect a collapse. Not an outright collapse. The powers that be, they still make a lot of money when there's growth. They just don't want it to trickle down to the lower classes too much, because if the lower classes gain more wealth, they gain more power. Wealth and power being the same thing in a properly understood society. Not like in Soviet times where it's just about power because the state can appropriate that wealth and you don't really have any technically at all. Biden will go after your civil rights. Will he be universally successful? No. It's not doomsday. We can weather him the same way we weathered George W., one of the biggest failures in modern political history. Obama, one of the other biggest failures in modern political history. We've had a brief golden age under Trump. My hope is he is reelected. My hope is he's reelected. He'll save me money. He'll make the nation more money. He'll probably be able to complete the China trade deal and his wall. SCOTUS will be properly comprised of people that will understand the Constitution. He's not a far rightist. Trump is essentially a business dem. He's not actually politically in many ways that far from Joe Biden. But he's got more finesse, and because he's got an R after his name, at the very least he has to pay lip service to multiple civil rights that the Democrats exonerate themselves from having to do so. Therefore, Trump should be preferred. I encourage every American citizen to vote for Trump, even if you don't like the dude. Yeah, sometimes he says things that rankle me. Sometimes he holds up a Bible and rants about Jesus in a sort of a weird Protestant floor show to appease the evangelicals. Well, it's a weird superstitious, it's wacky stuff. I understand why he has to do it, but it rankles me. Don't care, still voting Trump. That's about all. Peace out.